Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So, the Emmys were like 10 years ago. I'm so sorry this is so late. But yeah, the Emmys were earlier this week on Monday, which just so happened to be MLK Day. And we finally got the 75th annual Emmys ceremony. That's a mouthful to say. After, of course, the ceremony was postponed last year due to the strikes, because the Emmys usually take place in September, but they pushed it forward because there were no writers and no actors working. But at last, we finally got the ceremony itself alongside the primetime Emmys, which took place on Saturday, I believe. And so now we've finally gotten a chance to see the winners of the night. And there were no surprises, really. Like, there were no real surprises for the 75th annual Emmys. But the reason why I wanted to sit here to discuss the Emmys today, even though it's days after they premiered and it's not ideal. Usually I try to get my reaction videos up the day after the ceremony, but it just so happens that I have started some French classes. I have started some French classes after work on Tuesdays, and so I wasn't able to film and edit and post my reaction video yesterday. I'm going to try and do that over the next couple of days because your girl has been busy. Like, I'm busy. I'm sorry, but like, Hollywood, you're going to have to give me a break. And speaking of giving me a break, next week we are going to be getting the nominees for the Academy Awards, which will be taking place in March. And it just so happens that that nominations announcement will be yet again on Tuesday. So unfortunately, I won't be able to do my reaction video on the same day again. I'll have to post it on Wednesday, hopefully. But that's enough about me. The reason why I'm sitting here today isn't really to discuss the winners, although of course we'll go through them, but it's mostly because I am happy to report that I think the Emmys this year were actually really, really strong. I want to give a round of applause. I want to give a round of applause to everyone involved with this year's Emmys, because the ceremony itself was pretty damn decent. Now, this will be a shock to many of you because I've been doing this for quite a minute now, like about 4 years, okay, making these videos, and every single year I say pretty much the same thing, which is that the ceremony is dead, no one was funny, the comedians flopped. Like, it's always bad news. It's always bad news when I'm sitting here reacting to a ceremony. But this time around, I actually got a chance to check out more of the Emmys than I did the Golden Globes, and I just found myself watching it for my leisure. But I found myself watching it to have a good time because it was a brilliantly produced show. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the producers for this year's Emmys were all black. They were literally an all-black producing team, the trio that were in charge. And I'm not going to say that that made a difference or anything, but like, the show was good. The show was good. They were all black producers and it was MLK Day. So like, what do you want? What? Come to your own conclusion, if you will. So we are going to be diving into my thoughts on not just the winners themselves, but also the show and the things that I enjoyed in this video. If that sounds fun to you, then keep watching. And as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. I am, of course, going to be covering the Academy Award nominations next week. Like I said, it'll be a day late. I'm so sorry, but like, I've already paid for these French classes. What do you want me to do? I've already paid for the French, so it's going to be on Wednesday, but I will definitely be going through the nominees list when it drops, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's dive into these Emmys. But as I just said, I found this year's Emmys to be pretty special and pretty spectacular, despite the fact that the winners themselves were pretty predictable. We saw it coming from a mile away. If you were paying attention to award season, and especially to the Golden Globes last week, then you would already know how the Emmys were going to go down. Even though they were supposed to cover the year of 2022 to 2023, there are still some familiar faces throughout where you could kind of guess where this was going. But still, because of how great the show was, I found it to be engaging nonetheless. So when it comes to the highlights of the show, first thing that comes to mind is Christina Applegate. She made an appearance and presented an award, and she got a standing ovation, which was really heartening to see. She's currently going through a really tough health adventure of her own. I think she's suffering from MS, and so, you know, clearly that's had a huge impact on her health, and she did announce that she would quit acting, I think last year or a couple of years ago. So it was a really nice surprise to see her on that stage, and I think, like I said, the warm welcome that she received was really, really heartening. Another highlight of the show was this brilliant idea that the producers had to celebrate these famous shows during the ceremony. They had like all of these different casts, like the cast of Cheers and Martin and Community, Always Sunny. Like they all came up on stage and presented awards and had little bits, and they recreated the sets of these famous shows as well. And I thought this was a brilliant idea. I think award ceremonies should lean more in this direction and be more of a celebration of the art form, rather than just spotlighting obviously the projects that have come out in the previous year. I would prefer it if they also highlighted previous projects, if they had nods and, you know, homages to other great works that have come out either in the year or in the past. I think that's what ceremonies should lean into more. And I think it was especially special because it was the 75th Emmys. So like, again, they're paying homage to all of these great shows that have come before, and it really felt like a celebration of television. So I really, really liked that aspect of the show. Another highlight of this year's Emmys was the history making winners. This Emmys that happened to land on MLK Day, okay, ended up being a really brilliant night for a lot of Black talent, which obviously I don't know if you've noticed, okay, obviously that made me very, very happy. We saw a lot of, you know, historic wins take place on that night, especially from people like Ayoa Deviri, my sister. My sister from the beginning. If you know, you know. Okay, the way I called this out years ago and none of you were listening to me until now. Okay, but listen, my sister Ayoa Deviri won an Emmy, okay, on Monday, as did my other sister Quinta Brunson, okay. We also saw Niecy Nash Betts take home the award for Best Supporting Actress in a Limited Series. And on Saturday, during the Creative Arts Emmy celebration, we even saw none other than Keke Palmer, okay, Keke Palmer take home an Emmy for Outstanding Host for a Game Show. And I believe she was the very first Black woman to do so. So like, this is an incredible achievement. And during that same ceremony, we saw Storm Reid take home the award for Best Guest Actress in a Drama Series for her work on The Last of Us. So this has been a huge, huge sweep for a lot of amazing Black female talents this year, and I'm so happy to see it. It's so deserved. These women are working incredibly hard in this industry, especially people like Ayoa Deviri, who like literally doesn't even sleep. Like sis is everywhere working hard. She's in every single cast list, okay, like she be working out here and she's still renting, which is crazy to me, because what will it take to be a homeowner if Ayoa Deviri still has to rent and she's working this hard? Like, what hope is there for the rest of us? What are we doing? Having said that though, there is still a part of me that sees this with a bittersweet lens, because it's 2024 now. Okay, it's 2024 now, and I just don't think that we should still be celebrating these milestones the way that we are. I feel like by now we should have gotten to a place where this is very commonplace, like Black women winning these awards. It's just like, oh, it's just another year of Black women achieving excellence. Like that's the point that we should have gotten to. But instead, we're still saying things like, oh, Quinta Brunson is only the second woman in the Emmys 75-year history to win Best Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. That, like, what? Like, again, very happy for Quinta, for my sister, okay? But what do you mean second woman in 75 years? How are you boasting that statistic with pride? You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed, especially because of all the stuff that we have gotten in the interim. You're telling me that in this 75-year space where we've gotten, oh, I don't know, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Everybody Hates Chris, Martin, the cast of Martin were literally there on stage that night, and they even said in their bit that they hadn't received a single Emmy nomination, let alone win. So we got Martin, My Wife and Kids, Girlfriends, Insecure. You're telling me in a world where Insecure had 6 seasons that Quinta Brunson was the one to break the streak after 40 years since the previous black actress won in this category? Like, were you not there for the 6 years? What was going on? What was going on? So yeah, Hollywood still clearly has a ton of internal work to do when it comes to not only getting that representation out there for people of all different groups in media, but also recognizing these people when they've done a good job, not just kind of nominating them, throwing them in there for the sake of adding a bit of color, adding a bit of flair to the nominations list, and then promptly ignoring them in favor of white talent, as they often do. And finally, my final point before we dive into the winners themselves, this is only something that I can include because it's been a couple of days and people have been doing the metrics, but the ratings are really low. The ratings were really low for this year's Emmy celebration, and there could be a variety of reasons for this. Maybe because obviously the Emmys were delayed several months, so people aren't in the habit of watching the awards ceremony during this time, but it is awards season, so it's not like it's, you know, out of bounds completely. I think 2 things may have contributed. One is awards fatigue. I feel it myself as someone who's actually into this stuff, because within the space of a week we had a bunch of minor awards, but also 3 major ones in the form of the Golden Globes, the Critics' Choice Awards, and the Emmys. And I feel like for the average viewer, that's just too much. That's just too much going on. Okay, add that to the fact that people are in general starting to lose interest in these awards ceremonies as the years go on. I think it made for a really tricky combination for the Emmys to fight against. And number 2, we also have the NFL game. Listen. Listen, the NFL, am I pronouncing that correctly? NFL? Okay, I am not your sports girly. I'm not the one to turn to for any commentary on the NFL. Who was playing? I don't know. Was Taylor Swift there? I don't know. I think people were talking about like her outfit in that, right? Like, I think she was there. Anywho, listen, okay? There was an NFL game that took place at the same time as the Emmys, and I think that was a big no-no because it split the audience. I think the programming team should have done a better job at trying to avoid the NFL and maybe dropped the Emmys sometime next week or something. I don't know what the NFL program looks like, but having that game at the same time as the Emmys probably wasn't the best decision. Honestly, it is a bit disappointing to see that the ratings were so low for this year's Emmys, because I generally think that the producers and the casts and crew did such a phenomenal job of bringing it this year to really celebrate 75 years of these awards. I think it was a standout ceremony, especially in comparison to the Golden Globes last week, which are supposed to be more prestigious than the Emmy. I think kind of. Not really, because the Emmys is like the Television Academy, so it's still pretty prestigious for TV. But either way, the Golden Globes flopped, and the Emmys definitely stepped the game up and gave us a really good show that I found entertaining. So it is a shame that fewer people tuned in to check it out, because I actually think it deserved a grander audience. Although, let's not forget that these days, people watch things differently. And so I do think that Hollywood needs an overhaul in terms of monitoring ratings to begin with, because I think the tried and trues like Nielsen and them aren't cutting it anymore. I know that these days they try to take a look at streaming numbers and take those into account as well, but it's much tougher to monitor than just the regular old cable boxes were back in the day. And so I do think that these numbers, these ratings numbers, are also suffering from just the methodology used to monitor them. And also, let's not forget that these days people watch shows and films in like 57 parts in the form of 30-second clips, okay? So I was watching clips on Twitter and like people watching clips on TikTok and that, but those views aren't going to count because Nielsen can't monitor them. So it's not that we haven't seen the awards. We have. We're all quoting people and we know exactly what happened, okay? It's just that we didn't watch it in the conventional ways that are easy to monitor using the tried and true methodology that companies like Nielsen have been using for decades. So now that we have gotten that out of the way, it's time to dive into the winners of the night. And to be honest, like I said, this is the less exciting part because we already knew who was going to win these awards, okay? The three major winners were quite predictably Beef, The Bear, the Bear, won everything, of course, sweep, and also Succession, which I'm also happy for. And by the way, I liked all of these shows, so it was a pretty good night for me. I wasn't too upset by any of these wins, but my critique would be, and it always is, okay, this is something that hasn't changed from all of these years, but my critique would be, as per usual, that it feels like these voters just watch like 5 freaking shows, and then when it comes to voting, they vote for the same 3 shows for every single category, where I feel like, to be honest, there are some categories where other people, other performances, other, people's directing or scripts may have been stronger, and even if they're not one of the favored shows. But once you're a chosen one, you're going to be nominated in every single category and you're going to win in a big chunk of them. You're just going to sweep. And I think it just makes it uninteresting from a viewer's standpoint, just watching the ceremony. But also it seems a little played out and unfair. Because even though these shows are really, really great, that doesn't mean that they're the best at every single thing, at every single category. Like, let's be real. And this also applies across awards season. I think this became more apparent because the Emmys were so close to the Golden Globes this year. But the fact that the winners are pretty much identical, even though we're dealing with a very different voting body, tells me that Hollywood is very insulated, and people talk to each other and they're saying, who are you going to vote for this? Oh, I'm going to vote for this person, blah, blah, blah. And so everyone just has this like hive mind mentality of just picking the same people. And if they've already won other awards, especially the smaller ones that come before when voting is still open, then they're likely to win the bigger awards, And so that's why whenever people are like, oh, it should be the best person who always wins, it's like, no, it's not quite like that in Hollywood. It is very political, and people do have a hive mind mentality of, well, what's the point of me voting for, what we do in the shadows when everyone is going for the bear? So I'll just vote for the bear, and that can be applied to politics, but also to awards season. So just, keep that in mind. Okay, so let's start off with the drama category where Succession swept. Like, to be expected, as predicted, right? Succession just wiped the floor with everyone else. You had Kieran Culkin win for Best Lead Actor, Sarah Snook, Best Lead Actress, and then you had Matthew Macfadyen win for Best Supporting Actor, although Best Supporting Actress went to Jennifer Coolidge for her performance in The White Lotus Season 2, which, if you recall, The White Lotus was deemed a drama series instead of a limited series, which it was for the first season. Because the Academy finally clocked on to HBO's antics. They were like, hang on a second, you can't have a second season and still call yourself a limited series. What's going on, HBO? So they decided to deem it a drama series alongside its competition, Succession, but Jennifer Coolidge managed to sneak in there and get the award. And to be honest, with all due respect and love to Jennifer Coolidge, I know she is many people's favorite celebrity. But I personally would have given this to Elizabeth Debicki because she was better. Like, and this is for season 5 of The Crown. It's not for season 6. That's how behind we are. But season 6 will be judged in this year's Emmys in September. But even for season 5, I would give this to Elizabeth Debicki because she's been nailing it for seasons 5 and 6 of The Crown. So the fact that Jennifer Coolidge got it is like, okay, I think it would have made more sense last year because people were still riding that Jennifer Coolidge wave. But now that we've kind of cleared the air, the smoke is, coming out the window, hopefully some of us can see that that's a little bit ludicrous. Just a little bit. Speaking of ludicrous, taking a look at this list of nominees now, again, this is for 2022 to 2023, but still, I do think it's ridiculous that so many of these categories are populated by just The White Lotus and Succession. Like, it literally feels like they didn't watch anything else. As much as all of these actors did a good job, if you're going to tell me that throughout the entire year, they gave the best performances in each of their respective categories, I'm not going to believe you. Sorry. Like, I'm just not. So even though I agree with the winners, ultimately, I think the nominations list is just so repetitive and so restricted. Like, did HBO sponsor this? What's going on? Although you can find out more of my thoughts on the nominees list, of course, in my nominees list reaction video, which I posted decades ago at this point, but it will be linked at the end of this one. And then next up, before we get to my Chicago family, let's talk about Beef for a second here, because that ended up taking home all of the awards for limited series or movie. And like I said, I really enjoyed Beef, the series. It was so different and so unique. It makes sense that it was produced by A24, but it became a huge boon to Netflix as a platform, because it was just this like edgier version of a comedy that's quite dark and quite twisted and a little bit absurd, especially at the end. So I really enjoyed the show, and I said when I watched the series and I reviewed it in a What I've Been Watching that I thought especially Steven Yeun was absolutely phenomenal, and as was Ali Wong. She was absolutely brilliant in this role as well. You know, she follows in a long line of comedians who are able to do really, really well in more dramatic roles with a lot of pathos and complexity to them. So bravo to both of these guys, and bravo to the series overall for winning Best Limited Series. Although, as I keep saying, it's really unfortunate that the success of this show is tainted by the controversy that they had regarding one of the co-stars making extremely disgusting, inappropriate jokes about potentially essaying a woman. It's a problem, okay? And so as people talk about season 2 and that, I'm like, honestly, let's just leave it at season 1, because they got away with daylight robbery. And at the very least, I never want to see that man again. Okay, at the very least, if you are going to do a season 2, I best not see that man on my screen. You best eject him from the group chat. Now, we did get a little bit of variation in limited series for the supporting actors, where we saw Paul Walter Hauser win for his role in Blackbird, which again feels like decades ago because it came out in 2022, but he was incredible on that show. A truly deeply villainous, hateful character, and he actually has already received many accolades for his role, including a Genie Award for Best Villain. So like, we already knew that he was good on that show. And then when it came to Best Supporting Actress, we saw, like I said, Niecy Nash-Betts win for her role in Jeffrey Dahmer, which again feels like decades ago, but I'm glad to see that the Academy still remembered how brilliant she was in that role and rewarded her for her efforts. And also, I just have to add in here that she was the very best dressed actress of the entire night. I keep seeing pictures, stills of the 2024 Emmys, and she is always in there because literally I think everyone is gagged. Everyone is gagged to see just how stunning she looked in that black dress. And the necklace, I love the necklace she was wearing. No, she looked absolutely phenomenal. One of the very best dressed of the night. Okay, so now let's get into my family. Now let's get into my Chicago family. Sweeping all of the comedy awards. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. What else did you expect? Mind you, this is for season 1. This is for season 1 of The Bear. Now, I do agree with some commentators on Twitter, twitter.com, saying that it's possible that some of the voters thought that they were voting for the show's second season instead of the first, because it's been so long since the first came out. So that could have been the case. Maybe they were rewarded for 2 seasons worth of work, but even for just season 1, I've been telling you this show is good. So like, we shouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised. So this is where the hypocrisy sets in, because on the one hand, I'm really happy to see this amazing show sweep these awards, but on the other hand, I do think sweeps are a problem. I do think that Hollywood could stand to distribute these awards a little bit more evenly, because you know, it's tough to say that one show dominated in every single category, really. Like, it's tough to make that argument because there's such good work out there. So it really is a case of just campaigning harder for your show overall. And in that sense, it can be a little bit unfair to other great performances that never go recognized. I mean, you want to talk about never getting recognized. You want to talk about getting 58 Emmy nominations throughout the entirety of your series and not winning even one. You need to talk to the Better Call Saul guys, because they know that feeling. You're telling me that in all of the years that series ran, it never deserved to take home an Emmy for its incredible work that is beloved by many fans? I don't believe you. Sorry, like, I don't believe you. I think this is a campaigning issue, unfortunately. So that kind of makes things, again, a little bit more bittersweet. And then you could turn to the comedy category, because Better Call Saul is a drama. But even shows like It's Always Sunny. Seriously? 16 seasons? It's Always Sunny. Like, that doesn't make sense. Not one nomination. Like, that's hateful. At this point, you just hate the cast. Like, what's going on? So yeah, I'm lucky because The Bear is one of my favorite shows, and it just so happens to be blessed and highly favored by Hollywood at the moment. But it's peak on a lot of shows that never get recognized by these goddamn Academy voters because they have a one-track mind. Anywho's, we're still celebrating. We're still celebrating the fact that The Bear took home so many awards in the comedy categories. It did win Best Comedy overall, which was very controversial to some. People are still beating down this door of The Bear isn't a real comedy, blah, blah, blah. I've already explained, as a Brit, comedy is a little bit more nuanced to us, or at least it tends to be in our programming. So I'm used to seeing a show that's not a straight up ha ha he he with a, you know, round of applause after every single joke. I'm used to seeing comedies like that, and I prefer them. They have a bit more edge to them, a little bit more spice, and also variety. They have drama, they have tragedy. I like that multi-layered aspect of shows like The Bear. So I still think it is a comedy, though. People have been posting all of these clips of the series that are just so hilarious and just reminds me how firmly comedic it is. Just because it has sad sequences doesn't mean it's not a comedy. And I think that dichotomy actually works really well for the show. But anywho, but yeah, people have just been arguing, running around in circles about whether or not The Bear is a comedy. I uphold that it is. It's just a little bit more complex than your traditional sitcom. But still, what you can't deny is that the performances in this show are all brilliant. We saw Moss-Bachrach take home the award for Best Supporting Actor in a comedy series. We saw Jeremy Allen White take home the award for Best Actor in a comedy series. And then we saw my sister. Okay? Ayo Edebiri, the People's Princess. She took home the Emmy for Best Supporting Actress in a comedy series. Now listen up. Because just last week, she won the Golden Globe for Best Lead Actress, okay, in a comedy series. But for the Golden Globes, that was for her work in season 2, where she was given more of a lead role. And my guess is for this year's actual Emmys, we will be seeing the same thing, where she will likely be nominated as a lead actress for her work in season 2 of The Bear. So that's going to be interesting, because that will make her in the same category as her sister, her Abbott Elementary sister, who this time around took home the award for Best Lead Actress. And that was, of course, Quinta Brunson, who had a really emotional speech that made me tear up as well. And the fact that she's only the second Black actress to win in this category is absurd, but also well done to her. She wholly deserves it. The only note, since we're playing Fashion Police, the only note that I would have given her is, did you not have a steamer? Like, did you not like? Did you not have like an iron or a steamer or even a hair dry? People were saying you could, hair dry, just pull the fabric and just go ham with the hair dryer or something, because those creases were looking a bit. And people were posting pictures of her saying how historic her win was, and like I completely agree, 100%. Oh, history was made. But like the dress, the dress was so crinkly, and if it was intentional, I'm sorry, but like it still looked bad. It still looked bad, okay? I'm sorry. Like, the designer's intentions were just misplaced, okay? So yeah, it is a shame that that's going to be the picture that's used forever now to commemorate the fact that she is the second Black actress to win in this category. She looked so much better in award season last year, so like I don't really know what happened, but that dress just wasn't it. It kind of haunts my dreams, if I'm being honest. But that's it from me, guys. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on the 75th Emmys, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this show and the winners down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch your videos coming up, including my breakdown of the 2024 Oscar nominations next week sometime after my French class. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.